This one. Test.
Ah, okay. All right, everyone, we're gonna start. Please gather up.
We're waiting for Alec also.
She got very good, so
Okay. Okay, so let's start, and she's coming. Let's start.
Presentation. Okay. Hi everyone for session 3. It is on monitoring and evaluating regional climate adaptation and resilience insights from mission on adaptation projects. So I would like first to welcome the panelists for this session. Professor Maria Papadopoulou with double hat and more hats actually, the National Technical University of Athens, the Natural Environment and Climate Change Agency, and involved in many projects. Indicatively, I refer to Arsinoe and Exogenesis, and of course is an MC member of NexusNet. Professor Chevcha Melek Kazezginmaz Alhan. Okay. Hope I haven't mispronounced. Istanbul, a professor at the Istanbul University. She's been also involved in many relevant adaptation projects, such as Blue Cities, and also an MC member representing Turkey in the NexusNet. Dr. Gloria Salmoral from iCatalyst, with a very key role in mission implementation platform, the MIP for ADAPT from Spain. Dr. Alessandro Pagano from the Water Research Institute of National Research Council of Italy, also involved in relevant projects such as Lenses and Rexus, and would give us some very useful insights from his role on these projects. Mr. Edwin Chamit from Institute of Applied Sciences at the Malta College of Arts, Science and Technology, also representing the Waterline project, and having also the role of local insight, which would be very useful to us. And Dr. Tadej Stepisnik Perdi, National Technical University of Athens, project manager of Cardimed, also involved in the SURE Nexus and other projects from Greece, now from Greece. The idea for this session came out of a joint paper of 4 projects with this schema for adaptation projects, actually 3 adaptation projects, the Arsinoe, Impetus and Transformer, sister projects on adaptation and building resilience, and their umbrella project resilience. This paper focused on insights from and lessons learned from all these projects on what are the challenge areas for monitoring, for applying monitoring schemes of adaptation, of adaptation in many senses. Here also in the sense of resilience, on building resilient systems against climate change. I will only give you the 4 areas that were spotted as the most critical ones, and we have the tailoring global frameworks to regional local needs. And by these frameworks, we refer to the very well known, the SDGs framework, the Nexus framework, the Lancet Countdown framework, the Sendai framework, the One Health framework, so integrative frameworks. So this is the one area. The second would be, of course, data availability, applicability, and evaluation, as also well noted in the previous session. Interdisciplinarity in climate adaptation, and stakeholder engagement. I will not take any more of your time presenting more specifics on these areas. So I will go back and start with questions. Professor Papadopoulou, how in your experience and using both your hats, also involved in projects and in the Natural Environment and Climate Change Agency, how useful do you find these frameworks in monitoring adaptation? Do they create more problems, or do they facilitate things, taking also into account that there is evidence that we need to adopt these frameworks?
Thank you so much for the invitation, Dimitris. I think as an academic, of course, they don't create problems, those frameworks, because this is what we do. From the political point of view that I have as a president of the board for NECA, which is the agency responsible for the protected areas in Greece and the climate change, especially the monitoring of climate change impacts. Yeah, can be very useful. Is the way that we, from the side of the policy side, from the governance side, how we integrate that into the everyday life of all this administration burden that is quite big. What we try to do in NECA, being part of Arsinoi project, try to take advantage of those those frameworks. And I think that what we need is building on these frameworks. We can take some very, very important and critical outcomes that can be very useful to produce policies. So the idea is to use those frameworks, targeting at the first level specific areas. You cannot do something from 0 go to 100. So you need to make stable steps. So this is what we are planning on doing, is to use the work that is a little bit described in this paper, the sustained graph and all this information, by taking all this information and trying to produce useful outcomes from the report that all the enterprises in Greece are obliged to report in our observatory, and have all these technical reports that describe the emissions and the carbon footprint. So starting from there, we're talking about more or less 1,500 enterprises that are obliged. Try to see how that can be useful using those types of techniques, and what policies can produce from these types of processing. So this is something that can be useful, but that requires training of the people that are in the administration. So that means we need to train, we need to go down the researchers to the people that will be the ones that will check the regulations, they produce the regulations, they are the ones that implement the regulation and try to give them all the incentives in order to make the impact that we want as scientists. One other thing that I think is quite important, and as a comment from the previous panels, is that when we're talking about governance, we're talking about institutions. We do have institutions. We're talking about policies. We do have policies. We're talking about stakeholders. Right here, we are in a place that stakeholders are here and start talking, and we're talking about leadership. I think the key in order to have a really powerful outcome is to have the leaders that will take this opportunity and produce and actually make an impact to the society for the future generations. So we need to train our leaders in these types of concepts.
Is this working? Okay. And in regards to the reverse feedback, so these frameworks are mostly imposed and not co-created with implementers. They are imposed top-down. Do you think that there is room for criticism, that there's room for improvement of this framework to be involved with feedback from field people?
Of course, some people there sit around the table and create something. This is how all these ideas just started. We can improve them. We can orient it towards the specific ideas, the specific problem, the specific pressures that the country and area a problem has, and get the feedback and adjust them. Of course, the criticism is good to have it, but we need to start from somewhere. So this is a good start, and we are here, all of us, to hear and accommodate all the changes that are necessary to make them more useful to the people.
Thank you so much. Professor Kazes-Yilmaz. Melek, please.
Yes.
What is the critical challenges that you have met in regards to data? Because to fill these monitoring schemes and to integrate, to implement such frameworks, we need all kinds of data. And I would bring also specific focus to quality data, because we are used everything to be described with numbers, but sometimes it's not possible. So are data available? Are data interoperable? Are they free? Are they harmonized? What is your experience on the field?
Yes, thank you for your nice invitation and introduction. So when we talk about climate change, adaptation, and resilience, we need to first understand the different levels and also dimensions that we need to analyze first, so that we can define the data that we need and the available data. So first of all, we need to think about the immediate short-term responses, mid-term and long-term responses of the system that is in climate shocks and stresses. So first, the system has the observative capacity. When we talk about this, we mean immediate response, such as early warning system, for example, in case of a flood. Then we need to define and identify the adaptive capacity of the system. So which means the midterm responses For example, stream restorations, again, if you think about in terms of flooding events. And then finally, for long-term cases, we need to define the transformative capacity of the system. So in this case, maybe we need to think about migration from urban, rural, or vice versa. Maybe we need to, resettle some places, residentials, to another place, for example. And then with regards to different dimensions, the parameters that we need, first, number one, we need to define our physical parameters. And so for that, I mean, if in order to understand the flooding, so we need like rainfall, flow rate, flood extent, flood depth, so on and so forth. Of course, for that, you also need to make use of the modeling results. You need the parameters to define the social dimension, such as how many people are affected because of an event. And then you need to define the economic dimensions. And for that, for example, you need to define how many buildings, how many infrastructures are affected. What is the level of the damage? Is the damage structural or non-structural? And so when you come to this point, not only the numbers, but also you need it's very important to obtain and store the observations from the eyewitnesses also. And finally, you also need to define the environmental dimension. And here, maybe you need some water quality parameters that needs to be available in your database. So now, in order to analyze all these different aspects and different levels, once you need a national database, which may change, which will be country-specific situations, but you also need to have a good global database, because somehow, based on the country-specific problems, we also would like to generalize our results with regard to our matrix and indicators. And of course, for that, the database should be first unified and homogenized. In other words, we need some systematic framework for data collection and for data storage. And also, of course, based on the situation that you would like to analyze, you also need to unify your indicators, your main indicators and matrix, so that you can identify the data availability and the data that you need much better. So the challenge and the current situation, in my opinion, is now the available data is very different. It changes from source to source with regards to its format, with regards to its type of collection, which really needs to be unified in a systematic way. And also, sometimes it is not so easy to reach the data that is needed for us to make all this analysis. So one thing that we need to satisfy is somehow we need some, so to speak, global hubs to both upload and download the available data, and so that everybody can reach it, can learn lessons and apply to their specific cases. That's one issue. And also, of course, when we do all this analysis, we need, we include different disciplines, the contribution of different disciplines. So therefore, as said, we need global data sets, global hubs, which involve unified and homogenized data here.
Thank you. And thank you also for giving me a nice stepping stone for the next question. I will shuffle the questions because there's a nice connection that could go to Alessandro Pagano on you described, Malek, a very challenging bridge between global databases and regional databases. And we all understand that we need to make this bridge easier to pass both ways. Dr. Pagano, you have been focusing on what we call participatory modeling, which is, we all understand, a very challenging task, but also an enabler for these bridge to taking global frameworks and taking them regionally, and of course involving in this process stakeholders, key people. What is your experience on dealing with this triangle of frameworks, global frameworks, holistic frameworks, modeling and stakeholders?
Yeah, thanks. So my first reflection, which connects also with the other speaker were telling before, is that the problem is not the framework itself. So a framework is something that we use to better structure a problem. Then there is another step. So moving from defining a nice framework to its practical implementation, and this requires modeling skills and equations. This requires dialogue with the stakeholders. This requires also conveying the right message with the right language, because we, for example, we are scientists, we develop very complicated model, then we have to maybe not directly even show the models or the results of the model, but produce information that can be defined, actionable information. So pieces of information that can be used directly by the policymakers or the decision makers. Then going more specifically to my experience in a couple of projects that you mentioned, clearly it was a joint work. We have been working quite a lot together with Barbara and her group in participatory modeling activities, for example, in the Nexus project. And clearly it is really a challenging task. First of all, my feeling is that very often stakeholders are involved because they have to be involved for a project to be successful. And I mean, this does not produce really an outcome for the study area. And another key aspect is that stakeholders often are seen as data providers. And that is not the case. So they are not just data providers. They provide knowledge, which is much more than data. And connecting also to the paper that you were mentioning, that is the basis for the discussion, you also raised a very important issue to me, which is the importance of qualitative data. So we need, again, models, monitoring, hard data, but we also need qualitative data, which means, for example, the perception of stakeholder, their support to problem framing, the problem understanding, the knowledge of the area, of what happened in the area before a project or an initiative started. What we tried to do in this project was developing participatory modeling, trying to involve stakeholders from the very beginning of the project. We identified a kind of environment for the stakeholder that was called in a very nice way, in my view, which is learning and action alliances, which means that stakeholders are brought together to learn something, but also to have a commitment to act in their study area. From the methodological point of view, all partners basically in the projects did a lot of modeling involving the stakeholders through a series of events, starting from individual interviews to focus groups to workshops. And basically, what we tried also to do, and there were a couple of stories, not necessarily success stories, but there were a couple of stories. We tried also to align our work with local policies and local initiatives. Just to mention a couple of those, we are now working in Colombia, and there is one of the pilot areas in the Nexus project is the Caucci River. And we started working there, trying to align our activities with the what is called Plan de Ordenamiento Territorial. Sorry for my Spanish, which is which is really bad. But the idea is that we supported local authorities, at least in the first stages of the project, in what they call the diagnosis of the system. So we have been working with them, providing data from the first stakeholder meeting to perform a diagnosis of the system. So we identify together the main challenges and therefore the main objectives and the main targets of all the modeling activities. Another nice example from the same pilot areas, thanks again to Barbara and her team, is the idea of developing a visioning for the area. So basically, stakeholders were brought together in different phases of the project to create a vision for the area, which apparently is a trivial task, but it is not, because they have to agree on how they see the place in the long term. And that's basically where the model should, let's say, should aim. That's the target of modeling. So provide a support for what they see as a very general and very straightforward vision for the future. One last thing, this is probably, I would say, a success story, but there are also some challenges we are facing in other cases. Someone was mentioning before that the importance of transboundary river basin, probably it was in the previous session. We are challenging, still challenging with a transboundary river basin between Italy and Slovenia, which is the Isonzo Socia. And in that case, you know, there are different layers of policy actions in the past, agreements, you know, political issues between the different countries. And in that case, it's really difficult to find a common solution. So probably we need to make a step back and even, let's say, supporting with models and tools, the dialogue between different stakeholders is already an objective. So putting physically people on the same table is already a success, and it's an objective for our projects.
It seems you referred to a list of things that we can take from stakeholders in improving our models. We definitely underline your insights also from Arsinoe. I would comment that data sometimes would be the list that you would take. Stakeholders unveiled hidden places, hidden areas to be modeled, hidden systems that needed to be involved in the modeling structure to improve and define the system boundaries of the models. And yes, and I haven't thought that the transboundary context gives much more index. Once we have the round of questions, if we have time, I would like to go back to Professor Papadopoulou for this transboundary issue, which we have dealt in Nexus Genesis. But now let's stay a little more on the stakeholders. So please, Edwin Summit, give us your insights that come from the other side of the science stakeholder, of course, interface, a little more on the stakeholder involvement. What are the key challenges, and also specifically to communicate these frameworks, which we all understand are demanding to understand. It's not always easy to get. Please.
So thank you for this opportunity. So starting off,
At the same time,
I need
a
to
video
press the button when.
showing some video from the waterline project you are representing.
So yes, thanks for this opportunity. Definitely one of the biggest challenges, as always, is bringing all the stakeholders sitting together in the same place at the same time. So that is and we face that challenge. As you've highlighted, I'm representing currently the Waterline project, which is a horizon-wide era project. There are 15 different partners in this project, and our scope, particularly to tackle this, in our case, water issue, is to tackle from a quadruple helix innovation model is one particular stakeholder, which is the student. I think whenever we're looking at these elements, we need to see the future and looking at students and equipping them with the right skills and competencies is empirical if we want even these particular frameworks to be adopted in a sensible fashion in the future. And an area that we're delving in is digital water, because another key element that we are going to all face is technology integrating in all our lives. You know, we had the ChatGPT element that was a very disruptive way of doing so. And basically, what we're trying to do is through a stakeholder approach, we're trying to deliver content courses that these courses are gearing up our students for these challenges. Looking at building systems, we've developed in-house education technology systems, such as over here, what we're seeing, this is one of our products. Here you have a water rig. On the left-hand side, you have the model that we've built. On the right-hand side, we've created, this is the actual emulative lab that we have. How are stakeholders benefiting from all of this? Ultimately, the beneficiaries, they're benefiting because if we have a skilled workforce, at the end of the day, we'll have better, a better workforce out there that will support in more efficiency. So in case of this case, it's water. Our experience from the project is that whenever we knocked on stakeholders' door and on the local scene, maybe even from the fact that Malta is what it is, you are all experiencing, apart from the heat, you're experiencing its dimensions, and we are a close-knit community, especially coming from the waters. So it's easier. In certain other regions, we have various regions across Europe, there are more challenges bringing the stakeholders together.
Thank you. I will not leave you, Gloria, for the end without a reason. I want you to make a bridge of this. So we go to Tadej. Tadej, interestingly, I saw that you are currently focusing on the challenging issue of nature-based solutions. We all know it is challenging because the benefits they provide are multiple, so more things to monitor and more things, more holistic frameworks to include in this assessment. What were the challenges that you have faced in adapting such frameworks in the impact assessment of nature-based solutions?
Right. Thank you, Dimitri, for the question. Also for inviting for this session. I was very happy to read the paper, the open letter that you prepared, and I will address it a little bit from the mission adaptation point of view, indeed. To your question, and maybe even a bit wider, because we're actually living what you wrote there. So to set up a context, I will comment from a very big call that was actually published by the European Commission. One of the largest that I know. It has more than 140 million on a single call that is focusing indeed on demonstration of nature-based solutions on the ground around Europe. And it has 7 sister projects, each over 20 million, that are really trying to implement large-scale cases. So I'm managing one of the projects, Cardimet, and for example, within Cardimet, we will implement more than 20 places nature-based solutions, and within the cluster, there will be I think we counted, and there are over 70 regions involved in the 7 projects, either through demonstration or through replication. So indeed, a bit different component that we're talking here is nature-based solutions. And with this focus, the base frameworks, speaking now particularly for CardIMED, are the IUCN's global standard for nature-based solutions. So that's one of the frameworks that you didn't have in the letter, but maybe
Yes.
to add it. And we also used European Commission's guidelines. There's a guideline book for practitioners on evaluating the impact of nature-based solutions. So those are the 2 frameworks that we took as a base. In addition, after we got a project, actually, we also learned that there are headline indicators announced for the European Green Deal. So we're trying to take those into account as well. And we are in the last months actually defining the monitoring evaluation framework. Perhaps the open letter would be even more useful a couple of months ago that we started with this. Because almost all of the things that you put there, we're facing, we understood that indeed we have to really involve the stakeholders. One important note that I would add from what was already said and probably what will be is that we found it very important that we have regions or at least responsible authorities or agencies on board when implementing nature-based solution projects. It's a bit easier in projects because actually you have them as partners, but we see this as a big challenge when you try to spread those solutions from out of the projects and regions, let's say, or authorities are not the partners, so you have to find a way to involve them. And but I think I wanted to hear actually what Gloria will say, so I'll leave the intervention for MIP4Adapt platform maybe a bit later. On the frameworks, I would just like to conclude with we also see a very big importance in using the frameworks. We started with nature-based solutions. We don't consider Nexus as a framework, at least in our project, but we see it more or less as an all-encompassing approach. So we check the frameworks. Now we're trying to define the indicators. And while defining the indicators, we're trying to have in mind Nexus framework to start mapping the interconnections. And then with evaluation, we will again use and try implement Nexus approach to define interconnections. The project that I'm talking about and all those projects started in September, so it's very fresh. For now, I can discuss about the problems or issues and lessons learned that we have with defining indicators, but they said in the following years, there will be a lot of demonstrations that we will be able to give practical information as well.
One follow-up quick question. In Natalie project, we are also dealing with nature-based solutions. One critical stakeholder, specifically for nature-based solutions, and always, of course, is the citizen. Have you perhaps integrated some monitoring method for citizens? For example, we are doing citizen science. Do you find this promising or challenging in any ways?
Natalie is one of those projects that I mentioned, so it's a sister project to also make a comment for everyone. Yes, of course. We perhaps also comment directly to Natalie, at least from what we're learning from each other right now, and we're trying to form a cluster this time at the moment as well of all sister projects exchanging information. Perhaps what I see CardIMED doing slightly more than others, all of them are having approaches for citizen science. We will try to use digital tools and maybe connection with Edwin. So we're preparing an augmented reality app that will be served for 2 purposes. One will be to engage citizens, and in their local context, basically you'll have a phone and you'll be able to look around and visualize how nature-based solutions would look in your specific context. So they will be able to see, and it will have a feedback loop, let's call it like this. So it will serve also as a citizen science, getting information, so citizens will be able to report issues or state their preferences or prioritize maybe green wall, maybe green roof, maybe a pocket park in their neighborhood. So those are all in the developments. It's a very young project. Natalie is also a very young project, but our idea is to really harness the digital tools to engage citizens.
Thank you so much. Gloria. Well, we have all been having a look on what you are doing on MIP for Adapt. And we all understand that it's very challenging to support regional adaptation. One of these work threads would be the monitoring schemes. Please give us some insights of this very interesting thread of works, and I would personally want to listen more on the challenge of the variability of case studies of all these regions that are so different. I can't imagine how difficult it would be to find a standardized supporting mechanism for all this, please.
Okay, thank you, Dimitris, for inviting me today and have the opportunity being here. So I will give two sides, maybe of me for Adapt or mission and implementation platform that are relevant for monitoring evaluation. On one part, we are supporting the regions in the adaptation cycle. So we review their plans, their strategy, what are the solutions they want to implement, to characterize them, prioritize them, looking for funding, then the monitoring in the last step, monitoring evaluation. One, that means that for now, what we are seeing is not a priority in them, because what they really need is to identify projects for adaptation and finance. So it is the main focus. It doesn't mean it's not relevant. It means that the monitoring evaluation will be much more needed in the future. So this from one side. The other part in Me for Adapt is that we work with the mission projects. So there is a thematic working group in monitoring and evaluation. I don't know if you have you attended, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you are more suited to update about that group. So what is agreed there that there is a need of a harmonized framework for monitoring evaluation. This is from but I see here the challenge is first, have that framework, and secondly, how to translate that framework to the regions. That's the challenge, because we can have very fancy ideas, but in the end should be something that is practical and is feasible for them to apply. So how we are doing now, how we do in the technical assistance that we provide to the different regions, specifically for monitoring and evaluation, and in general, first we need to listen. We need to listen to what you do, how you are doing right now, monitoring and evaluation. What type of indicators do you use? So first to learn from what they are doing and to bring pieces together, because they might be already using different indicators in different, not only in the adaptation strategy, it could be also in terms of energy, transport. So how to bring together the different indicators in one place. So for me, it could be more a bottom-up approach that in the end aligns with regional, national, and European goals. This is in overall view. And what we use is now the IPCC, Risk and Vulnerability Assessment, and the ISO 14090. So when we use the indicators, we look at the ideal would be to look at the outcomes, how the vulnerability has been reduced because you have an increased a decreased sensibility or increased adaptive capacity, or you reduce the risks but reducing the exposure. But this sometimes can be difficult to measure though, because they are in the long term. Maybe you are more suited to discuss, to include more details about that. So in the end, they might focus more on process outputs or outputs directly from the adaptation projects. And I think I will leave it here in case you have a specific question. Yeah.
I'm always eager on how we could also integrate very difficult, I suppose, to tackle cultural variability. I understand that bottom-up approaches is one thing, but I mean, in discussions, for example, we very often say, this wouldn't work in Greece, this wouldn't work in X country. And we only know it by experience. There's no, to my knowledge, modeling of this. Have you seen this kind of challenge anywhere in supporting different regions in
Yeah, I mean, you might have regions that are quite well advanced in terms of adaptation. And here, a key part as well is participation as well. You might see they are really active. They really want to connect with the mission cities, to involve citizens. So they have a lot of information, but it's a more scattered and they need to put in place, but they have really good ideas. But then there are those regions that really are lacking a capacity that they are not so much advanced. So you need to start from where they are. For us, or point of start is do they have a vulnerability and risk assessment? And we start from that step of the adaptation cycle and we build from there. But in the end, you need to adapt. It might be regions that they want more to have knowledge exchange from our side. Other, actually, what they would like us is more for us to organize them or support them in terms of technical availabilities from our side. So you really need to do it case by case, because what we do is quite tailored, the service that we provide. Because actually, we have the idea is to have a delivery plan with them that is quite similar. At the beginning, is similar for all the regions, but at the end, you need to adapt it.
Thank you. And if we have 1 minute to more, I would like Maria to bring her experience on the transboundary issue, which also involves the cultural difference and the participatory modeling. So you have dealt with this transboundary case study, demanding case study. Could you tell us some?
In the frame of Nexogenesis, we have a case study, a transboundary case study in the river basin of Nestos Mesta River. That is a shared aquatic system between Bulgaria and Greece. Upstream Bulgaria, downstream Greece, with similar pressure, similar problems, differences in culture, differences at the level of implementation of European directives. Bulgaria became a member much later than Greece. So all this creates a completely diverse stakeholder crowd. And as the colleague here just mentioned, is you need, first of all, to map what you have and then make small steps each time. And as Alessandro mentioned, is that even to bring them around one table, it's a success. And actually, we were managed to do that, bring the Bulgarians and the Greeks, sit down around table, have a workshop, start talking, and we were lucky that we got information and they start like it. And it's not only the different level of maturity and understanding of the issues, but it's also the fear that they feel. Like, you know, it's a cultural thing. And of course, you have to remember also the political situation, like 2 or 3 couple decades behind how was Bulgaria and how was Greece in a completely different, opposite groups of countries. So there is still a fear and like a suspicion. So we need to, in building trust is not an easy task. So I think the goal for Nexogenesis is actually to start building trust and start having the people talking and exchange visits. So we were lucky that we have the 2 municipalities on board as a partner. So the outcome of this case study after Nexogenesis will be to at least have like a type of agreement a very like soft that describes some actions related to the protection of the river rather than the actual management and issue that has to do with the foreign policies of the two countries, which is something that it's way far from the locals. So it's quite a challenging case study. Prissy and the team and the UTH and N2A had done, I think, a great job on building trust with our stakeholders and with from the other side. But still, and that's the last point, is the fear to share climatological data.
Oh.
Even that, it was a disaster to try to convince them to share like temperature and precipitation data. So if you start from that, to bring them in around it one on the table, it's a success. So this is where we started from, and this is how we move forward. And we hope by the end of the project 2025 to have something that will be useful as an experience, as lessons learned. If you want to see angry, Chrissy is that when she heard about, oh, it's confidential.
We
You
don't
haven't
share
seen her-
data.
You haven't seen her like that.
I asked to receive this in writing. I said, yeah, I was yeah, not pleasant. But still, did we receive anything? They haven't seen me, that's why. Like, you know.
Thank you so much. Is there any comment one would like to add to what has been said, or from the audience?
I'd like just to invite the mission projects who are working in monitoring and evaluation to, I know your part as Resilience and Transformer are attending, Arsinoe was at the beginning.
Yes.
So I think it could be great if we have your presence in the group to work on this topic and see, yeah, makes an output that can be used by the regions and local authorities. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. We would all love to support. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I'll sit there. Trying to finish this one thing, no problem. So I asked Manuel. Let's have this session and then we break. Yeah. Sure. Stay patient, that is week, but it's after. It is 12:04. I think we should have been finishing right now, waiting now for lunch. 1:40 for lunch. It's earlier. I understand.
Tadek, can we have the slides because we had the. Yeah. Yes, of course, we need to have pictures of our beautiful speakers. Okay, so the good news is that we are just 45 minutes away from the lunch break. So bear with us. I hope that this session actually contributes to what has been already discussed in terms of why we need to engage and how to engage with the stakeholders. And this is actually the main title or topic of our session is stakeholder engagement in Nexus projects, lessons learned, and good practices. We have been discussing through the whole morning the need for this. And I think if we just take one step back, the real reason also because we are putting all these efforts with our mistakes and our success is because the problems that we are facing, and this is, you know, the core of the Nexus problems are just too complex to be addressed by any single knowledge domain. Science can definitely play a big role in doing this, in contributing to advancing or addressing these problems. But we need other type of knowledge. Also because scientists, I think we have realized that the reality is slightly different from, our practice as scientists. We have heard we need to understand the boundary conditions. We need to understand the policy frameworks. We need to understand, very importantly, the political economic considerations that we were talking about, these transboundary aspects. And learning from all this, it becomes clear that we can also do better. It's not everything on our hands as scientists to address and overcome all these gaps that we have between science and policy, but definitely there is much more that we can be doing. So the purpose of this session, I mean, from this rationale and also from the strong push that has been promoted through the research policy agenda to actually engage more actively stakeholders in projects, and not just for communication purposes, which I think is also very important, because stakeholder engagement is not about communicating. We scientists, landing somewhere and said, oh, this is what you need to be doing. No, I mean, the success doesn't come from that. The success actually comes from understanding also what are the demands and the challenges that the stakeholders face, so that we can also make our science a bit more impactful. So the goal of this session today is actually gain some insights from our experts and distinguished panelists on what are their experiences doing this, because it's easier said than done. And one thing that I remember Manuel said last year when we met in Split is that we need to learn about the success stories, but why not? We also need to learn what didn't work, because we can learn a lot from that. So from this point, I forgot to say the most important thing. I think I know quite a lot of people, but my name is Barbara, and I'm convening this session with Serena. We will be both facilitating the session. This is a panel discussions, no PPTs. And I would like to, first of all, give the chance to our colleagues, distinguished experts and friends to introduce themselves. So to make it very agile, a small exercise. So you have 6 words to say your name, where are you coming from, and what would you like to see coming out of this workshop? Okay, in 6 words.
No,
So would you like to start, Christina?
it's a very big challenge. No lunch if you get over the 6 words. So. After yesterday's dinner. Okay, so I'm Cristina Madrid. I'm a research director at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. I direct a wonderful group of people.
Too many words.
Working on environmental assessment of the energy transition.
I'm Chrysi Laspidou from Greece, University of Thessaly, and I would like to see success stories out of this.
I'm Luisa Prista. I'm replacing Andrea Rubini, that is from Water Europe, because I'm going to present something related. And what I want to come at the end, that everybody understands what stakeholders involvement is, and not to make in a framed way.
Pierre Labornier, sociologist in transdisciplinary and transformative research. I would like to get inspiration.
Alex Kandarakis from Global Water Partnership Mediterranean, Head of Communications. I would like to get tips for myself and anyone else on how to develop better European project proposals.
Michael Schembri, Head of the Water Policy Unit at the Energy and Water Agency. I'm really curious to hear the experience of other entities when engaging with stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Nobody stick to the 6 words, but everyone was very precise. So you still deserve the dessert.
Diet for everyone.
Yeah, we don't never stay to the. Okay, so the way we're going to be doing this, we have 2 main questions. I mean, they're quite broad, and unfortunately, the time here is very constrained. So we will ask our speakers, each one of them, to reflect a bit on 2 main questions that maybe. Is there a chance I can do it myself.
You can go ahead here. Look.
Okay, we had these
you
beautiful
go.
pictures, but yeah, let's move to the questions. Okay, so in this first round, I would like to ask our speakers to actually reflect a bit from their experience, what good practices they've learned through the engagement with the stakeholders, and maybe also what didn't work so well that can maybe help others to see, okay, this should be, no, I mean, this maybe should things that you need to bear in mind and be very careful about it when you engage with them. I don't know where to start. Maybe we can start with you, Michael.
So as regards the first question, what good practices we can highlight from when engaging with stakeholders, I believe I would boil it down to three main items. I believe it's very important to communicate appropriately with stakeholders, and so that you use the appropriate channels to get across stakeholders. Different stakeholders might require different communication channels, so that's very important to keep in mind. I believe then it's also very important to be clear and realistic about what their involvement or their commitment would be. So how will their commitment be beneficial for the project, for example, if it's a project proposal, and this would avoid then maybe miscommunication or misunderstandings further on. And the third point, which I believe is also very crucial, is to be clear about also what's in it for them in the projects. I believe it's the most important point, actually. So when involving stakeholders, it's always very important to keep in mind that they're committing time, they're committing resources. So we need to showcase or communicate effectively with them what their involvement with, how it will benefit their time and effort. I think that's one of the crucial aspects to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, Barbara. So building on what Michael said, I think Julia this morning, Giulio Patanaro said that Horizon 2020 moved into Horizon Europe, and now there's a change. And there's a bigger focus on not developing science and tools, but actually implementing them. And I think this is a huge change. And I think this is obviously where stakeholders come in. Otherwise, you could develop your solutions, our solutions, in an experimental farm, experimental lab, in another situation. But real world conditions require stakeholder input. I think this huge change also throws up a number of questions. How much should we focus on cutting edge innovation versus more practical solutions that stakeholders actually need? Michael mentioned what's in it for them, and I think that's crucial. So sometimes we may find that some of our tools may be very advanced, very complicated, very pushing the boundaries of knowledge, but can stakeholders actually use them? Can they implement them? Do they have personnel that is trained enough, has the right software, the right skills to use them? So maybe there's a balance, there's a trade-off there. And I think there's a fundamental asymmetry in the situation of, we represent the project, we're presenting our research, our costs are covered, we're doing our job, right? But the stakeholders, as we said, they're volunteering their time. And so there's an asymmetry there. I think in the Nexus project, which Alessandro is also part of, and Barbara, one of the very successful, I think, things that we found in the Greek pilot in Pineos, led by SWRI, is that it was all built on the opportunity. So at this juncture, we heard from Dirk, what are the changes coming up in policy and how can we seize this opportunity? So at this juncture, there was the revision of the River Basin Management Plan in Pineos. There were huge discussions, high-level political discussions about water scarcity in agriculture and what are the solutions we're going to do about them. So our project was able to seize exactly on that. And Barbara is ready to, and just to say that, so I think Nexus combined very well. Some partners with very advanced scientific, capability, with a more grounded pilot leader who was able to translate, but also adapt to what do the stakeholders care about and need.
Thank you, Alex.
Barbara, if you may, I just want to have perhaps a Davis lawyer question, because you said that stakeholders dedicate their free time. Now I'm asking, the Horizon Europe or the new project really wants the stakeholders to be part of the game. So I don't think, and this is my personal opinion, that the stakeholders should be coming just because they are interest part. They need to be part of the game as well. And also when it comes to dedicated time as a human capital. So I think that would really have a double commitment to have them constantly with and not just joining when, we need to them. I mean, of course, this is a plus, but having really human capital within the project, that might be really the win. So what is your opinion on that? Because the gain, of course, it is there, but how about having them, in presence? Because they are our, well, as it was before in the previous project, say we have a vision, our nature-based solution should be. Perhaps they have their own vision. So this co-participatory. So what is, voluntary stakes and being committed to a project? Sorry.
No, thank you so much, because actually, I think this is a perfect example again of we also need continuity, I think, between the projects. That's another part of the asymmetry, because we are very happy and excited. Oh, we have a great new project, and the stakeholders see it's only going to last 3 or 4 years. And I've already seen another 3 or 4 projects before that. So it's not so new to me. But so we need continuity. And for example, in Nexus, which is very fortunate, is, and this is a plug for a new project, is that the same pilot area is able to continue with the new Horizon project, SpongeWorks, which is starting in November. And actually, a lot of the stakeholders that were external in Nexus will actually have joined the consortium. A lot of irrigation associations, local administrations have joined as partners in the consortium in the new project. So the first step was to get them as external stakeholders, and the second step, luckily enough, was to be able to integrate them.
But perhaps that what also the NexusNet might be doing with the platform, that really to have them engaging, really to be part of the system and then draw a positive conclusion. And that could be another way, perhaps, Chrissy, that we could be involving them in our projects.
Thank you, Alex. So Pia, would you like?
Yes.
I really hope so.
Yes, I coordinated a Nexus project called Creating Interfaces with focus on knowledge co-creation and creating of local connections on the food, water, energy nexus. We had a very nice plan how we could enter this in the 3 cities taking part, but found in the beginning, so the plan was done with some stakeholders involved more closely. We still found in the beginning we had to start from, quite new, shifting very strongly the focus. But I think this openness was really important for really connecting to the needs and interests of the stakeholders. And this concerns especially this Nexus concept and projects around it, because it was really difficult to connect them to this. It seemed abstract, they didn't know it. It was difficult to really, have them believe in the meaningfulness for them. And it did not correspond to their reality, which was quite siloed. So they were not used to work like this. So it was really important to find very concrete connection points with their needs. So we started from one Nexus element, like finally we ended up working on food in all the 3 cities, on local gardeners and their needs, in Slupsk in Romania, on kindergartens and food in kindergartens in Poland and food waste in Wilmington, US. And then it worked really well to work with them on the connections to the other elements, starting from this, really starting very concrete, and then we had their interest. And I think this was really good. It worked well.
Thank you very much, Pia. I think it's we were saying this morning, no? We were asking, I mean, do people know what Nexus is about? No, and sometimes when you start from the very concrete elements, this actually helps building, you know, the mindsets of everyone, you know, that how we are interconnected and how the different links are being made. Luisa.
Hello. I would like to be a little controversial because I was now reading the question and I think stakeholders engage in research projects, and I would like to go a little beyond research projects because we are talking about Horizon funding of the European Commission that will finalize anyway, and stakeholders engagement, I think it's very, very important, is the key, is essential. But there is a huge risk if it is not well done. Of course, on Nexus, you need stakeholders engagement because it's inter-transdisciplinary, it's context related. It needs the acceptance of the stakeholders. It's really a complex issue. So stakeholders engagement is essential, but there is the risk. And I want to tell you that there is a group, a cluster, a group of projects of the European Commission that 2 months ago presented to the European Commission recommendations exactly on stakeholders' involvement. One of the recommendations is linked of what we are talking, that stakeholders should be paid, but this is not what I'm going to talk about, is that they said something.
I wasn't there.
No, you was not there, but they say that should be recognized and paid. But they said also something that I consider very important. It is integrating scientific disciplines, scientific and non-scientific knowledge with the ambition of co-creation, innovative solutions to societal problems requires specific expertise, methods and tools. So this means that this is not a game. If we want to do stakeholders involvement, you have to know how to do it. There is a methodology or different methodologies. This is scientific proven. It's not just to put people around the table and discussing and do an action plan. This is not about this. This is not about communication. And there is a big story and big related to the stakeholders involvement. One of the most important ones is the Living Labs. The Living Labs started in the 70s in Scandinavian countries. They were related to the cooperative and the participatory movement. And in fact, it was already in 2006 or something, that European Commission during the Finnish president decided to acknowledge the Living Labs and even launched an European network of Living Labs that's called ENOL, and everybody knows about this. So this was the beginning, but it was not the end. And at the beginning, this was the first methodology that is scientifically proved. It was really the change. This is linked to innovation because we are talking about innovation. It was the change between a linear innovation process to an open and participatory innovation process. And this is really, according to me, the click. And the definition of the Living Lab at that moment has all the ingredients, but it's too wide. It was like this: structured is the first word, structured. Open innovation process focusing on co-creation innovations in a real world context. So we are talking about real. It's in the ground. It's not on a table. It's not inside a room. By involving multi-stakeholders around a common objective, generate sustainable value for stakeholders and in particular for end users. So this definition had a huge impact even in the policies, in the European policy. I was there and I can acknowledge that it has not only in research projects. That's why I realized that research projects, now we are talking about Living Labs, collaborative projects, participatory projects, community of practice, yes, but it influenced other policies like the regional policy, the cohesion policy, the smart specialization strategies, because of the quadruple helix that nobody still talked about here today, but it's very important. Is putting together or involving governments, academia, industry, and civil society. So this is the core of all the question, is to put, you have to put all them together. And based on this, Water Europe, since this covers the entire field, Water Europe incorporate the living labs in its vision, so the water smart society, and create a different definition of living lab that is water-oriented living lab. There is a real methodology about this. We have here the books. I bought you the books if you want afterwards to see, because there is an harmonization book that defines the methodology. There is scientific definitions. There are how to assess.
Also online.
How to assess.
You find them online as well.
Water, yes, and water-oriented living labs. What are the water-oriented living labs? This is a network of 150 water-oriented living labs that are linked to the water vision. But this is not over, because we realized that the water-oriented living labs are technology pushed oriented. So what we want to do in the future, and that now we are creating, is solution-oriented living labs that look at the water system, because the water system is not just technological push. We have a lot of, and this is the reason to work. How can it work? It has really to have also legislation. It has also to have investment, because we are talking about investment. We cannot just define action plans and decisions without investment and creating a field for the private sector as well. So this will be the Water Europe Living Labs. There is another book that is going to come very soon before summer, and there is another atlas. The other atlas, what is important to know, and I'm finished on this, is the other atlas, instead of 105 living labs, has only 21. And there's only 21 because those are those solution-oriented living labs that respect the smart water, smart society, and have as objectives resilience, sustainability, and security of water.
I got it.
No, okay, you got that. You did it. So,
Keep attentive.
now, what is important now, just to finalize in a successful note, in those 21, we have one that is the living lab in Lisbon, and the living lab is focusing, of course, is also technology innovation, but on digital tools, and involves a big community with the government, with municipality, and so on and so on. And has money, because you need to have budget to implement, and you need to join the business people just to do financing and investments. The Slotan is saying yes, otherwise everything is stopped. Is beyond the project. So the project has always the Be Smart project, but it will go on, not the project, but the living lab. And it was so good that it was presented International Day of Water. The second one is in Meshland. The second
Diet
no, just
over
that,
the
because
6 words.
my fault. The second one is in Meshland, and this is completely different because it's really on public engagement, on people, and the citizens are there. It's on nature-based solutions, and the citizens are there participating on activities. So it's a different one. And the last one that, of course, I have to mention is on Malta. And this is the national one on river-based solutions, completely different, but is one of the 21. So I think that we have really 3 examples of stakeholders engaged that work, and they work because they are committed, because they have budget, because the authorities are involved, and this is not just, and this is in the real field.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Luisa. I think it's great. I mean, other than the amazing work that is being done by Water Europe, I think it's great actually that we distribute later, or we make these resources
The work.
available. And I'm really sorry that I need to like interrupt every one of you because I know that we could be talking about this for much longer and it's worth discussing, but unfortunately we don't have enough time. So I will give now the floor to Chrissy, please.
Okay, thank you. It's bad luck to be after Luisa because she left nothing. She has talked about everything, which was great job. Yes, I'll repeat then she says because it's important to be said. Okay, so on this, so what are the good practices? And many times at the beginning, especially, we had a lot of bad experience, really failing again and again. So if you have motivated stakeholders that want something to be done and to be achieved, then yeah, it's great and everybody's enthusiastic and everything. But if you have people that resist and that don't want to get engaged and you're trying to get them engaged, then it's a very big challenge. And I will start and how to solve this. I'm not sure I have exactly the the recipe or I have figured this out, but definitely you don't underestimate it. So, initially, maybe you say, okay, stakeholders, you just invite them, you just talk to them and that's it. No, that's not it. So you need social scientists, you need experts that deal with this on a day-to-day basis. We do our models. These other people, a lot of them here, do stakeholders. So you need this expertise. You need to give it enough time, enough money, and value. So the engagement process is important. There needs to be a framework to step on. It's not random. It's not just inviting people.
Chrissy, what is in your opinion the don't? Because we now heard a lot of
the
always
don't.
positive, no? What is in your opinion don't with a stakeholder? So what is the epic failure that you would lose their engagement?
Yes, okay, very good point. For me, the hardest group is the farmers. So older men, I'm sorry to say, older men that are have grown up in a village, for example, without many different perspectives, that are not familiar with technologies. This is also the technology gap is huge. And these people will see you in distrust. So they see you. So the don't come as the one that knows everything to people that have been cultivating their lands for years, and you come to tell them how to do it. You will be gone, in a minute. Try to go down to their level, I would say, very important, if possible, because if you try too hard, they spot it, of course, and they flag you and they don't engage. Try to connect with people and get accepted by people from their own circle. In order for them to see that it's okay to trust you. And then I would say upgrade the skills of these people. So I think in the long run, we should, invest on upskilling and reskilling these people when, introduce the technologies, develop the trust, talk to them about it. Many times it's ignorance. They don't understand. See, I see that again and again. If you try, and so give them information, explain. Don't assume that they know what you're talking about, and give them, give them things to connect, and always be sensitive, of course, to their needs. I mean, we were talking with Dirk about this subject of the farmers, and I was saying, but we need to tell them how to save water and how to not use the pesticide. Blah, blah. He says, yeah, but you need to see their side, that they are not making enough money. They are. So you always need to be very sensitive to their side. So, and I don't have the answers to this, but it is very tricky in societies like ours that are not accustomed to be working with stakeholders, and they don't know that they should be doing that. It's very hard to change their mindset. So,
And perhaps as a scientist, what we shouldn't. Sometimes it's also when we go, we come with the thought, okay, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And that's what you said already. And I think, how about the communication? Because I really think the lexicon that sometimes we are using, the way how we convey our message, it also needs a reshape, sometimes even between disciplines, we don't understand the same language and we are all academics. But when it comes then to the real world, really to make it, what would be, to go down to be in their art, no?
My failure is usually the I know it all. I go there and I know. So I go there with such a, strength that, come on, I know. I'm the professor.
It's like that.
Yes, I've been to, America, I'm the water Europe, blah, blah. And then like, yeah, so, so don't go like, because you don't. So give them the value of your stakeholders know their system and don't act like you know when you don't. So that would be my best
Take-home
advice.
message.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chrissy. I think you also touched the one important item you touch upon that I think it has been a mistake, or at least from my experience in a lot of the research projects at the beginning, is that for the same reason that when you are a modeler, you need to be trained and you need to learn how to do the coding and whatsoever. I think many scientists, they have jumped just into stakeholder meetings without having any kind of skills to do that, and you are dealing with real people that have real issues at stake. You might be looking at this like, this is something you can play with the model, but these are real issues for the people, so that you can do a very big mistake. And I think the second point, it's also very important that you also need to have I don't know what's the word in English, but I mean empathy and patience. When you enter a room, maybe it's much better to first listen and then, say, okay, how can we, in between, how can we try to address or use the science to address these issues and the resistance to change?
My biggest failure by far, always. Then I get wiser, but at the beginning, yeah. And before it was even worse, imagine.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
Yeah. Empowered women, sometimes
Yes,
they look scary to some people, but that's a different topic. That's a different conversation.
Exactly. And I know that Sarah raised the leave no one
Who-
behind
who
or
to engage, yeah.
the marginal. That's
Mhm.
also very, very important. And this applies to, again, the technology gap and all these, part of the society that are not in our heads or they're not in the latest developments. And they're, of course, the ones hurt the most. So we need to develop special plans for that. I don't know how. I guess education, I would say, but I'm not sure. I want to hear if anyone has an idea how to tackle this. Yeah. Let me
Okay.
pass to-
Thank you, Chrissy. Christina, you have the answer
I don't.
to all our big questions.
Next question, please. No. I actually don't know if I have a lot to add to this because I share many of the views already. It's actually easy to be the last one. But maybe something that I would like to share is that the failure case is when you don't listen. And the feeling that very often as modelers, we go to this room full of people with a conception of what it has to come out of there. And then you don't allow, so you allow some range for the answers, but you don't allow them to think out of that box that is your box that you're bringing as a modeler. So I think that has been a failure in different projects that I've been worked on or even directed myself. So I take the blame in that case. And it's something that we could all improve. And that is this ladder of participation. And when we talk about co-development, then we really need to talk about co-development and not data grabbing or discussion or, feeding ideas, no? And then one thing that has worked for us is this whole framework of trying to do the models fit for purpose, which is a very common sense idea, all right? But we have found that trying to use techniques that allow this thinking out of the box of our own projects. And now I know that is difficult because especially the European Commission don't like when you say, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just coming here to listen. No, they really want like your expected impact now already. No? How can we tell you my expected impact? If I am asking the people now, how can I tell you that? No? So something that has worked is trying to leave the book white, allowing them to tell us things that we haven't thought about before, and then trying to make our models from the modeler perspective fit for the purpose of their decision, not our research.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, so you have it.
So really changing from validation to real co-design, because sometimes we want validation of our option and not really thinking to make them part of the system.
Exactly. So I don't know if this is a sign that we need to be slowly breaking for the lunch break, but the screen is off and we had like a second question. So maybe very briefly, and I mean, for those of you that would like to maybe reflect, and I will leave it a bit spontaneous. We don't need to go exactly the same way. We can go the other way around, or whoever jumps first. So the second question actually links a bit to what you are saying, Christina, is, okay, even, I mean, putting ourselves in the position of scientists, that we are aware that we are talking to a different audience that has other type of knowledge, that we need to be sensitive, that we need to be trained to do this, that there needs to be something for them, for the stakeholders. We still need, I mean, in order to develop these projects, we need some sort of enabling environment. So from the funding perspective and from many other perspectives. So what would you think, what are key elements that we will need, you know, to continue or to make these engagements more successful? So either bring stakeholders as partners into the research projects, which is not always so easy to do for many different reasons, or other barriers that you have encountered when really trying to do this, but you said, okay, the system doesn't support me to do this, or I have some limitations that actually we need the support to be doing this more ambitiously. And I just opened the floor, Pia.
I think much of what we heard now leads to two aspects, openness and time. And both are not corresponding well to the logics of research funding we have now. So it's about mostly 3 years project, and we need to define, or it's expected to define from the beginning what we are going to do, what is coming out, having a solution orientation, and this does not fit at all. So I think research funding should be designed in a way that we can be open, that we have enough time, more than the 3 years, for really linking to the needs and have an openness and flexibility.
Maybe a point I'd like to add on how the institution support can help in this environment. I believe, apart from the aspect of funding, which is quite obvious, I believe, it's also creating the institutional framework, I believe, that would allow stakeholders to engage. And if this is done wisely, it can also be extended or utilized beyond the lifetime of the project. So we can actually utilize research projects to create or start at least institutional arrangements or collaborations which can go beyond, with stakeholders, which can go beyond the lifetime of the project. And I'd like to give an example from one institutional arrangements, I would say that we've developed in Malta as part of a live project. So as part of this project, we've created what we call a water table, where different stakeholders who are not, some are project beneficiaries, but some are not actually, are just stakeholders in the project. There for their information, for their knowledge, for us to share with them the results of the project. So they're not getting any funding per se, but they're still interested to participate in this project so that they can be aware of what is being done. And it is also very beneficial for the project beneficiaries to get feedback, tangible feedback from the stakeholders on what actually could work or not, and maybe how also they would also have the potential to steer maybe some changes within the project implementation per se. And maybe such setup can also be extended then beyond the lifetime of the project. So that, I believe, there's a very important emphasis on the institutional setup, the institutional framework. Thank you.
I'm also curious to know also from the institutional point of view, what is a don't, you know, when you need to, as an institution, to engage with a stakeholder, what is the thing that you know that is not going to work and not produce really an effective collaboration?
For this question, I would very much tie to the concept put forward on not entering a meeting or a stakeholder meeting with an already set agenda or an already set mind. You have to be open to new concepts or the same a problem being addressed or viewed from a completely different viewpoint.
And if I'm a citizen, I come to you with my strong stakes and say, no, this is not like that, man. You know, you have the institutional framework, but it should be likewise. So the strong will perhaps from the bottom up. So how an institution should be approaching to that in order to bring them to a reasonable table where design can be done. This is always attracting me, how an institution can really come then towards a very strong stakes, which is driven by any other means, can be socioeconomic or whatever, but it's rather strong, and it doesn't want to commit what instead from the institution, you know, should be then coming down. What is the magic recipe then in that case to really come to a co-design structure?
In reality, engaging with stakeholders will always be a very challenging exercise. And some topics are more challenging than others, obviously, and some stakeholders are even more challenging than the topics per se. So finding a way in between or coming to an arrangement which may be acceptable to both, in reality might not always be possible. So then it will be also the importance of science-based decision-making to guide then the ultimate decision. But I still stress the importance of engaging with stakeholders throughout the entire process.
No, but this is also very important, I think, to understand that not always is everyone together, it makes the difference. So this was very important also to understand that.
I think that the most important, the most important thing, we are not just talking about research and technology, we are trying to find a solution. And the solution is helped by the innovation and so on, but it's not only this. So if we want to find a solution, really we want to think ahead. And when we are creating this stakeholders engagement, that's why I make the point on a well-framed methodology. So to make sure that there is the commitment and the people that stay, they are really committed, they are engaged. But not only this, there should be a political commitment, and also there should be political will for investments. Otherwise, the thing will die there. And that's why the examples that I gave, in particular the one from Lisbon, it's working. And it's working because it's beyond the project, and because there is this political will with investment to create digital tools that will follow the water cycle in Lisbon, but also creation of an observatory and also some certificates. Those are some examples of some certificates for buildings on energy efficiency. So it has to go beyond research, but it can start during the research. And this is what they did. They did during the project Be Smart, but thinking ahead with a political will and a political will for investment. This is very important. Otherwise, it does not work. And it does not work when the money is not there. Sorry. There are not business opportunities for the future, because if you find solutions, you need to have business opportunities. If you don't have, it's over. And you can look at the examples of the first atlas of 105 examples, and the difference from the 21s afterwards. Those are let's say, the solutions providers that will be more successful. And this is what I say.
Right. Yeah. Did you want to go ahead? All right. Just very short on the funding, and I think politicians sometimes are hungry for solutions. They want to find something to be inspired. Most of the time, and this is from personal experience, if I go there and I'm not well prepared, what I want, I don't have it all worked out, I fail. So the don't go there asking just for money and saying, yeah, give me money to do something nice, blah, blah. And when they pinpoint, they see that you don't have it clearly worked out. If you want something to get done, develop it, but develop it well. And go with this, go public, I would say, and then the money will come because people want to get reelected. People want to, they will buy a good idea and use crisis as an opportunity. Always, don't let a good water crisis go to waste, don't let it go. If any, and crises are coming, unfortunately. So let's use these and let's have these plans clearly formulated to go out to the institutions and say, listen, this is what I want. Who can pay for this? I can get this much money from here, and I can see this through. So this would be good inspiration. If you don't know, then okay, you don't get it.
Sure. And I think that has been said by Maria or someone else. You also need to look for the right opportunity and the right momentum. So you might have a good idea, you need to sell it well, but you also need to be smart to say, okay, this is an opportunity right now to do this, because these decision makers need to be making some decisions regarding this. Great, thank you, Chrissy. Alex.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I agree with all the points, and perhaps just to add, we had following Pedro's presentation, we had a small discussion outside, quite interesting to me, and it raises the point that, by the way, I think both from Pedro's presentation and the person from the Water Services Corporation in Malta, I think they are giving a very different perspective to most of the people here, and I think it's good for us to see the world through their eyes. They're not farmers who are, on a different technological level. But for example, we heard, how can the Nexus help me solve the problem of space in Malta, which is the absolute constraint? Or reuse, okay, but reuse is really not going to solve the problem of waste in irrigation, right? Which is really the problem. So perhaps what I'm saying is Pia spoke about openness and time, and perhaps also flexibility and being in a way less ideological. So on the one hand, we do want to support and promote the Nexus, and this is what will get it into the policy documents that is necessary, right, for all the work we're doing. But on the other hand, people like Pedro, and they need practical solutions to practical problems. Or a farmer in Jordan, in Lebanon, in a Prima project or whatever, is worried about energy cost, about lack of water, not about digitalization per se. So we need to be able to show that digitalization provides some kind of solution to his problem. Otherwise, why, if you were in his place, would you really engage and install sensors on your farm if the network is, the piping is, rotten and you're getting water waste? So perhaps this flexibility, and I'm thinking practically now, perhaps in a project that we're involved in, sometimes, we have the research part, but maybe we can also donate a new, with not a huge cost, but actually install a new piping network in a farm so that they can actually get something in return very tangible, and that helps to build the relationship. They're getting something very concrete, and then we can say, okay, but let's come and play with the more experimental constructs. But they can start trusting us as somebody who really want to help them rather than only help our agenda.
Thank you, Alex. I think yes, I wanted to actually open. So, we are already, can we have 5 minutes for opening the floor? Because we did not allow anyone to make any questions. Is there a possibility that we can stay for 5? There is a place for discussion?
Yeah,
Okay, so after that, we are going to have an open discussion. Okay, well, there was a burning question there, and I will accept it if that's everyone is fine with it. Please.
Okay, sure. Luca Polidori, I work for Holland Circular Hotspots, where we also co-chair the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, and we support globally with the setup of public-private collaboration platforms for the transition toward a more circular economy. Now, this is a word I did not hear in the panel today, public-private. And of course, when it comes to research projects, I can imagine that you focus on your project and you try to say, okay, how do I engage with stakeholders I need for my specific project? How can we avoid to have silos working when we try to engage stakeholders? Because of course, there are multiple projects on similar topics, all driven to the transition toward a more sustainable Nexus driven. thing. How can we avoid this silos working? Because that's not something I've heard. And is public-private something that, in your opinion, can work also in the countries you represent? Because this is something I only see in the north of Europe, and the more you go to the south, the more you go to the east, and the less this approach is being taken into account. Thank you.
Christina, you want to?
Who wants to?
I can build on that, actually. I think there is certain competition between disciplines, between countries, between institutions, because we are competing for the funds, let's face it. People is also competing for the funds. So there is a certain competition, and translating that into a collaboration, which is what a Nexus assessment requires, is not easy, because we do not have the framework, we do not have the environment, the umbrella for that. Something that I have perceived also is that if you are a social scientist, it's fantastic for you to work on participation. That is your work. Your colleagues will look up at you. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We are all convinced. Try being a modeler in an engineering department and telling your colleagues, I am doing crowd modeling, or I am doing participatory modeling. It's like, why? Can you put that in a Python package? No. So how do we break the silos? Maybe escaping from competition, going to collaboration instead, and maybe making some work, all of us, to try to share the relevance of participation in modeling and co-production, beyond participation, co-production in modeling. I think that might help. I know it's not easy enough.
Thank you so much. There is another last, another last question. Sarah.
Yeah, this is a question for Michael, is it, from Malta? The guy from Malta. Yeah, the question is, what sort of engagement activities have you been involved in with citizens in relation to these plans for the offshore energy farms?
Actually, you caught me on the wrong foot, because that's something which, given that I'm the head of the water policy unit, it's something which is taken care of by the energy unit and the ministry. But as per usual procedure, usually such documents are, and the development of such policies are involve a consultation exercise. Now, could be open to the public or targeted stakeholders, but it's something which I cannot really reply on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, apologies. But do you have any idea about, public sentiment about offshore energy farms? I mean, in the UK, it's a big issue that really divides people, and I wonder, presumably that will play it should play an important part in the plans, or will the plans just go ahead anyway?
I'm sorry again, I can't answer your question. Yes. But what we can do is, actually, if you can share your contact details, I can maybe check with my colleagues and get back to you. Okay.
Thank you. I would like to thank our panelists. A big applause. I thought it was a very nice meeting. And ready for lunch.
Wait, before you go, today is the 14th of May. It is GHAJN's birthday. So,
To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Janice. Happy birthday to you.
we should say, can we sing the Greek one? Πάμε στα ελληνικά, the Greek one. Να ζήσεις, Γιάννη, και χρόνια πολλά, μεγάλος να γίνεις με άσπρα μαλλιά, παντού να φωτίζεις τις γνώσεις το φως, και όλοι να λένε ένα σοφός. Yanni, I'm not asking how old. I'm not. Yes. Yeah, in many languages, we can do in many, but yeah, we want to have lunch, but yeah, sure.
Hi, does this still work? All right, everyone, just an announcement for the agenda because later sessions have international panelists, so we cannot be late. Therefore, after lunch, we are starting 2:30 sharp. So 2:30, we have to be back. It's a little bit less than an hour, but enough for this, okay?